Okay, so again, this video is for Unit 5. I just got done making the video on georeferencing, which is how you would get images into a GIS and tell the GIS where on the Earth that particular image exists. What we're going to go through in this video is how to create your own vector data, which means we're going to create our own points, lines, and polygons, okay? And I'm just going to go through a quick example of how to do that. And for this example, and what you're going to do in the lab, is we are going to digitize the rooftops of the buildings on campus, and we're going to digitize some of the streets on campus. And then we'll just put a few points on campus of maybe where some signs or some trees are, just to show you how to, again, create your own vector data of points, lines, and polygons. Okay. So the first thing we have is I've got ArcMap open. I've got the world imagery in ArcMap. That's what we're going to use to digitize our buildings and our roads and our trees and signs. Now, you don't have to use world imagery. Maybe you have a topo map that you want to digitize a stream on, or some other kind of backdrop. Again, this is how you get features on the Earth into vector form, points, lines, and polygons. So I'm going to zoom in here on campus. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create our shape files. We need to create some blank shape files that we want to digitize our features into. Okay, so obviously if we're going to digitize the rooftops of buildings, those would be polygons. If we're going to digitize the roads on campus, those would be lines. And then trees and signs would obviously be a point. So we're going to create 3 new blank shape files for us to create features in. And to do that, we're going to open up Catalog. And I'm going to go to my Week 7 folder. And I already built a connection to that in my last video that I did on georeferencing. So I'm going to highlight Week 7. And I'm going to right click on Week 7 and I'm going to say New Shapefile. Okay, so we're creating a new shapefile. I'm going to call this CC Buildings, which stands for Casper College Buildings. Obviously we just said those are going to be a polygon. And then probably the most important thing you need to do here is you need to give this shapefile a projection. And you can't just give it whatever projection you want. You have to give it the projection that your data frame is in. Now, if you remember back to the last video, I changed my data frame to UTM Zone 13 North. Okay? If for some reason you can't remember what your data frame is in, or you're just not sure, close this window, double click layers, and check what projection your data frame is in, because you're going to need to know that. I myself, since I just did that georeferencing video, know that it's in UTM Zone 13 North, so I'm going to click the Edit button. UTM is a projected coordinate system. UTM, we use the datum N8083, and then Casper is in Zone 13 North. Click OK. Alright, and there you can see it added this shapefile to my table of contents. Now there's nothing in it, it's blank. If we were to open the attribute table up, no features in it. That's because we haven't created any yet. Okay, let's go ahead and create our other shapefiles that we're going to need. Again, I'm going to right click Week 7, New Shapefile. I'll call this one CC Roads. That will be a polyline or line file, and I'm going to give it the same projection. Okay. And again, that adds it to my table of contents. And then finally, I'm going to create a point shapefile. So again, right click Week 7, New Shapefile. And I'll just call this CC, we'll just call it CC point features. It's going to be a point, and I need to give it the same projection. Uh, 13 north. Okay, there's our shapefiles. The next thing I want to do, or that I like to do, and you don't have to do it in this order, but I like to, is I like to think about what attributes I would want to collect along with the features on the map. For example, for the buildings, I would probably want to know the name of the building that I'm looking at. So that might be one attribute, is name. Maybe I want to know the square feet or square footage of the rooftop. So I'm going to put a column in the attribute table for square foot. For roads, maybe I want to label the roads by the name. Features, I'm certainly going to want to know whether the feature I'm looking at is a tree, a sign, or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to open up the attribute table for buildings, and I'm going to create the attributes now, or the columns to store any attributes that I want. So I'm going to go to the table options button. I'm going to go to add field. First attribute I want to know about these buildings is I'm going to want to know the name, and that's going to be a text column. Okay. Doesn't need to be 50 characters in length. I can bump that down to 30, I think. I don't think there's a name of a building that's over 50 or 30 characters. Okay, so there you can see it added a name column for me. Let's add another field. Again, maybe we want to know the square footage of the building in case we ever need to re-roof the building. Be nice to know what the square footage is so we know how much roofing material to order. So I'm going to make a column called SQ_feet, and I'll make this a double column so that we can have decimal places in there. Okay. And you can, for now, this are all the attributes I need. You can go back in later and add more if you forgot some, but it's always good to, I think, to add the attributes in first before you get started. Again, you can go back later and add more attributes if you want. As far as the roads go, again, open the attribute table, add a field. Be nice to know the name of the road. Again, that'll be text. And maybe we want the length of the road. So let's add a field and let's call it length _FT, and we'll just put that in feet. And again, we'll make this a double column so that we can have decimal places in the number. And then for our Casper College point features, an attribute that we're for sure going to want to know is, how about type? What type of feature this is? And again, that will be text. Okay. All right. Again, you can go back and add other attributes later. Let's just go with that first. Let's go ahead and add in some buildings. Okay, some rooftops of our buildings. I'm going to zoom in here to where the library is. Zoom in a little closer here. Okay, and then to start digitizing the outside of this rooftop of the building, I'm going to go to Customize, Toolbars, and I'm going to pull up my Editor toolbar. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dock it up here. So first thing I'm going to do is go to Editor, Start Editing. Pulls up this editor window, and where did my little Okay, I think we're back here. Sorry about that. Not sure exactly what happened. Just tried to move the little window out of the way here and it disappeared on me. But okay, we're getting ready to digitize the outside of this building. So I went to Editor. I started editing. I'm going to click on the shapefile I want to edit. In this case, it's CC Buildings. I'm going to go down here and click on Polygon. And then you're just going to left-click vertices in and trace the outside or the rooftop of this building, which in this case is the library. And I just sneezed, excuse me. Now when I finished tracing it, I double clicked to finish that feature. And actually I'm going to change the symbol of my buildings here to hollow. I'll make it a red outline. Okay. Now I kind of messed up this part of the roof here, so what I might want to do now, this building is selected. Once I get done tracing it, it's selected. I'm going to go up here to my editor toolbar and click on Edit Vertices, and you can see it shows you all the vertices you put in. You can move these vertices around. You can also delete a vertice if you want. Okay, you can hold your mouse over, click on this little edit tool arrow up here, and you could hold it over a vertex, right click and say delete vertex, and it deletes it. Okay. Again, if you want to fix that, you would use your little edit tool here, click on the building. I could right click on this line and say, or excuse me, before I do that, I need to click on edit vertices. Right click on this line, say insert vertex, and I can move that vertex back to where it was. Okay, and then you click outside that feature and it updates it. All right. Next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to right click on CC Buildings. Actually, let me use my little edit tool in the editor toolbar and highlight that building. I'm going to right click on CC Buildings and say Open Attribute Table. I'm going to want to type the name of this building in, so I'm going to call it Goodstein Library. We'll do the square feet later. Okay. Close the attribute table. I always like to save my edits every time I do a feature, so I'm going to go Editor, Save Edits. I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go on to the next building. Okay. Let's go ahead and do the new dorms here. So I'm going to zoom in on the dorms. I'm going to highlight CC Buildings, click Polygon, and I'm going to trace around the dorms. Notice I'm getting all these little indentations here. Just for time's sake, I'm going to kind of skip these indentations. You're going to want to try and get those as close as you can. Okay, I'm going to kind of skip them just so we can get through this a little faster. And then again, I'm going to double click to finish that. Okay. Again, right click on the shapefile in my table of contents, open the attribute table, and type in dorms. Okay. Again, we'll do the square footage here in a second. Again, save my edits. All right. let's go ahead and do a line, okay? And I'll just digitize part of a road here, okay? So again, if we want to digitize a line, we're going to go to CC Roads. So highlight CC Roads, click on Line, and then just start. I'm going to digitize the middle of the road here. And I'll just do that as an example. Again, once I'm done, open up the CC Roads attribute table, and I am not entirely sure what the name of this road is on campus. I'll just call it T-Bird Drive. You may want to look this up on Google Maps. And again, we'll do the feet. We'll calculate length here in a second. I'll show you how to do that. But I'll type in the name of the road, close the attribute table, save my edits, and then move on to the next road. Okay? Change the symbol of this so we can just see it a little better. Okay, and let me finally digitize in a few trees and other things here. Again, highlight CC point features, click on point down here, and you can go ahead and just click on a tree. And then obviously open up the attribute table, type in tree for the type. Okay. I'll do another one here. Click on some more. See if there's a different type of feature here. It's hard to see any signs on here. If you could, I know there's a light pole here, I believe. It's a little hard to spot, but I do know there's one there. Obviously, you could click on that and type light pole. Click here, call this a bush. Alright. And I'm going to save my edits. Alright. Okay. Couple things. Let's say we're done. When I give the lab to you on Moodle, there'll be instructions of what exactly I want you to digitize, how many buildings I want you to get, and lines and roads and whatever. But let's say we're done digitizing right now. What you're going to do is go to Editor, Save Edits, and then Editor, Stop Editing. And then you can close out this Create Features window. Alright, I'm going to highlight these features and say Zoom to Layers. And then in the lab, what I'm going to want you to do is make a map of these features that you have created. Okay? A couple things here. Remember, I told you I would show you how to calculate length and square footage. So again, right-click CC Buildings and open the attribute table. And to get the square footage of the buildings, right-click Square Feet. Calculate Geometry. We're outside of an edit session, so click Yes. And then for units, you could do square meters, square feet. You could do acres if you wanted to. Again, if you had some land somewhere and you wanted to digitize the land and see how many acres it was, this is how you would do it. For this, we want to do square feet. So we're going to click on square feet, click OK, click Yes, and you can see the Goodstein library is 30,609 square feet for the rooftop, and the dorms are 40,069 square feet. Against the again, that is the rooftop. Okay. For length of the roads, you do the same thing. Open the attribute table, right click on length, calculate geometry. Again, you can do meters, miles, yards. Let's go ahead and do feet. But this particular length of road, so from down here, we made the corner up by the T-Bird gym and then clear down by the old admin building, is 1,953 feet in length. So a little bit less than half a mile. Okay. All right. A few things to get my map ready. One thing I might want to do is symbolize my features. Again, kind of hard to see these dots that I have here. We could right click on our points here, go to Properties, go to Symbology, and we could go to Categories, kind of like we did with the precipitation data in Unit 4, but instead of doing quantities, we want to do categories, and we want to symbolize on that type field. And we want to click Add All Values, and now we can have different symbols for each of the features that we created. So for tree, again, you can click on the little symbol, double click the little symbol next to tree, and then when the symbol selector pops up, you can type the word tree in. And all of these different tree symbols will pop up. Now the first ones that pop up are 3D trees. You can't use 3D symbols in ArcMap. You can only use 3D symbols in ArcScene, which we don't get into until the next GIS class. But if we scroll down here, the one I like to use a lot is this tree 3 symbol. So we can click on that, click OK, gives it a tree symbol. Double click light pole. I'm not sure. I'll just type in pole here. Not sure what will pop up. Utility pole, poles, equipment. I don't know. You could use any of these different symbols here. I wonder what would happen if we type in light. Alright, this is a little better. Again, there's tons of them here. Here we go, street light. Not sure. Double click next to bush. We'll type in the word bush, or you might try shrub. Let's try. Do tree again. Again, there's some symbols in here that you could certainly use. I'll go ahead and use this one. We make it a little darker color here. Okay, click OK, and now you can see the different symbols on our map for what we digitized. And then you can go ahead and make your map with your north arrow, scale bar, and all the map elements that you need. Okay. So again, this is the first video was on georeferencing. That's georeferencing raster data, and we georeferenced the old image of Casper College. This video went into digitizing, so creating your own vector data, and we created polygons for the buildings, lines for the roads, and then points for the trees and light poles and bushes on campus. Okay. Some things I want you to think about is what's more accurate, georeferencing or digitizing, and what sort of helps your accuracy in both of those different processes. So I hope this makes sense. Again, try it out in the lab. Make sure you get a hold of me if you have any questions on digitizing or georeferencing. Okay, thanks a lot.